What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's live full-time reaction to Celtic 0, Braga 2. I've got Stuart here with me to go over it. He's having some internet issues, connection issues tonight, so we'll see how it goes. We might have to lose him depending on how it plays out. But Stuart, disappointing. Obviously, a 2-0 defeat. I think you're looking at a home game in the Europa League is one you need 3 points from after a point last week, which in some quarters consider a good result. But I think again tonight it just never really looked like happening for us, did it?
No, I think there was things went against us in the game. I think the goal chopped off it did brush the arm, right? But it was so negligible and just nitpicking. And I think the vast majority of people thought it just hit the head. Things like that go against you, right? It's about the character. It's about how you respond. It's about what you do. And I looked at that team and I thought it was kind of characterised. I mean, the first goal's very, very poor for Kasper Schmeichel. Joe Hart had a bit of sympathy in the commentary. And I get that, goalkeepers union and such. But I think if you look at the goalkeepers as well, right, they had a goalkeeper that was very sprightly, very agile, very modern, forward-thinking. Celtic had a guy that's ageing, let's face it. Kasper Schmeichel was a great goalkeeper. He's still a very good goalkeeper, but he's beaten for that. And then the second goal for me, I just look at it and I think, this is an ageing team. This is just a team that is second to the ball. We tried to clear it again and again, couldn't clear our lines, and then it goes in. And I'm looking at all the areas of the park, and it's just players that you're meant to have experienced players to complement a kind of dynamic team, and at the moment it's experienced people that are trying to have to carry it a lot of the time, and it's just it's a sorry state of affairs right now, man.
I think first half, I mean, we'll come back to the Iheanacho goal, which I think is possibly the worst decision I've ever seen. Or one of, certainly right up there with the worst decisions I've ever seen in my time watching football, but we'll come back to that. I think first half we just looked toothless again. We looked disconnected. We don't really look like we've got any sort of cohesion, fluidity going forward. We created very, very little. I think the only thing that really resembled a chance in the first half was Taneki getting to the byline, putting it across the face of the goal. The only shot we had in target in the first half was also Taneki cutting in. He sort of hit quite a powerful shot, but straight at the goalkeeper for the edge of the box. That was the only time we really threatened Braga's goal. And I think, obviously, you're right in saying Kasper's had a howler. I think he gave the ball away twice, maybe 3 times before that. But there's no way that he should get beat. It's a decent strike from Ricardo Horta, but there's no way that a goalkeeper should be beaten from that distance. No pressure on the ball, okay. You can argue somebody should have been closer to him not to let him get the shot away, but he's shooting from some distance. And I think going with his opposite arm, possibly not moving his feet quick enough, it was a shocker. It was a really bad error. Up there with, it's a mistake of a different nature to his one in the Scottish Cup final, but it's up there as just as bad. I think there's no way he should be beaten for that area. And then I think Braga controlled it after that. They had comfortable spells of possession. They arguably could have got another goal before half time. I think Callum McGregor had a block from the second phase of a free kick. It ricocheted around. Callum McGregor got a block in. They got a corner. They had a flurry of corners towards the end of the first half. And I think we did make some change. Obviously, at half time, we brought on Sarachi for Donovan. We went 3 at the back, it looked like. We put some risk in the game. We'll maybe come back to talk about the manager's tactics and shortcomings. I know a lot of people want to discuss that, but I think he did put some risk in the game. We played high, we were a bit more aggressive. But again, Stuart, I just think we look like we've not got it. Like I was going to say there's something missing from this Celtic team, but I think it's a lot more than one thing. I think we just look short in loads of areas.
It's a malaise, and I mean up front there's an impotence bar Taneki. there doesn't seem to me to be any kind of connectivity, or you use the word cohesion. I think it's a really good one. I think, yeah, and actually the thing that's impressed me since he's come in is he's dropped me into like the play, and it's a wee while since we've had a striker at that ilk, and I'm quite enjoying what that could bring to the team. But I think you're seeing Brendan Rodgers' third season syndrome kicking in with a vengeance here. I think you're seeing a team that can comfortably pass around a team, but there's absolutely nothing in terms of penetration. And it was only Tunecti that was really offering that. And I think there was maybe one Iheanacho run that was offside in the entirety of the first half. In a game where you're at home, you've started the campaign with a good point. You've actually got a team in paper, I think, with Bernardo back in it, that looked to me, I was coming into the game, I was like, oh, right, let's see what we get. The team excited me a wee bit, and then the performance didn't deliver. And it's happening time and time again. You mentioned Schmeichel. If you're making those kind of errors repeatedly in high-profile games, then you've got to ask a few questions. And my joy, if you could call it that, but the things that are kind of keeping me going now are the likes of Kobe Donovan. His emergence has obviously been a positive. Tunecti looks a really good signing, but we've got a million left wingers and nobody that can play in the right. We've obviously touched a lot on the kind of board stuff, and I don't really want to go into that. What I will say is there was chance tonight. The stadium was, I reckon about 2/3 full as a kind of safe estimate, maybe just over that. And I think that's speaking volumes. And I think everyone is just generally at the stage where it's, do you know what? It's a melodrama off the park that is the most focal point for Celtic right now. The football on the pitch is not the most important thing. And how do we get to that point is complete mismanagement. In fact, we're about to enter pantomime seasons. We are the pantomime right now. And the thing is, right, Rangers are in a mess. The rest of Scottish football isn't offering much. But I reckon Hearts, just be doing basic modern practices and using data, can close that gap, right, properly. And at this point, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at where we are. I'm looking at kind of shades of the darkest period during Neil Lennon, and I'm thinking, this slide needs to be arrested. And at the moment, I'm not seeing any answers.
Aye, it's really difficult to look for where the signs of, or the signs of promise are coming from. Tunecti, again, tonight was the bright spark. He was the player that made things happen. If you get into the second half, it was just a brilliant save for the goalkeeper with about 15 minutes to go. Tierney had a header, which he didn't really get enough on. The goalkeeper just a good save, but you'd expect him to make it because there was no real power in it. Braga had chances because we were playing high and they were only really one sort of sequence of passing, like playing up the pitch and getting round us.
It was so easy, wasn't it?
We were basically man for man on the halfway line, which again, like I say, there's risk in the game at that time, but they had chances to get a second goal before they got one as well. But I mean, aside from Tunecti, who, like I say, he's a young guy, he's came in, he's looked impressive, he's trying to make things happen. Maeda on the other side, again, it's such a pity that a player who's been so good for Celtic looks so distant. And I mean, he sort of sums up the subdued nature of the whole team at the minute. I think when we make that change at halftime, he ends up playing sort of right wing back, if you like, and whatever formation. Although nowhere near as good at it as Didier Agati. He was coming inside and giving away silly fouls, and again, he just looks disinterested. Iheanacho, I think you can tell he can score goals, but he's just short. He's just short of what we need. Like, this Celtic team needs a player who is in a much better condition and a much better place in their career than Iheanacho has been recently. Looking at the team in these European games, that's where the weaknesses and the problems are really exposed. We might be able to slog out victories and cobble together performances domestically, but against a half-decent team at a European level, you get exposed. And listen, Braga are in a bad way themselves.
Yes.
They've no wins in their last 5 in the league. The manager's sort of clinging on to his job by all accounts. They get beat by Nacional at the weekend, who hadn't defeated them for 12 years. They're sitting 7th in the table. It's not like they're really firing all cylinders and they're a well-polished European outfit, but they're half decent, and that was enough to sort of soundly beat us at home tonight. And I think that tells you everything, Stuart, about where we find ourselves at the minute.
100%. Do you remember Celtic Park used to be a place the European giants would come and tremble in their boots? I always remember the when Del Piero came out in the 4-3 game, and he's just like, right? And now you've got a stadium that's half empty. Well, maybe not quite half, but you get my point. You've got a stadium that's partially empty. You've got no semblance of atmosphere, and you've got, let's be honest, very much a second-tier outfit for Portugal, like who are in a poor spell coming to Celtic Park and beating us. I mean, it's absolutely nowhere near what this club could and should be with the correct investment and the correct people in charge. I also like the thing, and I did kind of touch on this, but I want to kind of re-emphasise the point. It looked like a leggy, aging team tonight. It looked like a team that needs and I think you were intimating this, a galvanising force of some sort to come. Now, Tunekti on his own is kind of doing his best at it, but he's not going to be enough, right? Iheanacho's not going to be enough, right? What we need absolute quality operators to come in. But the difficulty comes in when players look at how we are as a team at the moment. We are not that attractive a proposition. We always talk about the intangibles that you have, like the atmosphere, the European games, blah, blah, blah. Who wants to be part of that? It's nonsense. So there needs to be something, there needs to be a catalyst for change. And normally I feel like you can go, right, we need this, we need that. But we need so many things right now that you can't really go, oh, here's what we need. I'll tell you one area just tactically that I think is it's been a weakness for a long time, right? But Callum McGregor playing as the deepest midfielder doesn't work in these games. You need a screener. You need somebody with that kind of more defensive mindset. And the fact that we're saying that against a Braga is humbling enough, right? But definitely against bigger teams and quality teams, you need somebody that is an enforcer in that area. And I think that our midfield is going to be continually exposed on the half turn and when players break that first press if we don't address that. So there you go. I couldn't find an area, but I found one. Just to try and look at it and go, right, where do you start with this mess?
Aye, I want to go to a couple of comments, Stuart. Just for everybody watching, I know that Stuart's picture is struggling, but his sound is absolutely fine. So while that is the case, we will keep going. Craig Ferry's saying it's the midfield that's the problem, guys. A load of comments about midfield. Stuart, you've just mentioned the Callum McGregor scenario. I think, looking at the midfield at the weekend, McKeown and Engels came in. McKeown was okay first half, but okay's not really cutting it just now for us. Engels was poor. Bernardo comes in out of the cold tonight for his first start in a long time, I think probably since the Scottish Cup final last season. He started the game okay in the first 10-15 minutes, I think, Bernardo, but again, you can't look at his performance at all and say that it's been any better than Nygren has offered up or even Engels or McKeown or Hatate. None of them have been that good. I think Paulo Bernardo's last act was a foul throw, actually, before he went off, which again would sort of sum up the night's proceedings from a Celtic point of view. But I think the midfield is another area that's way short. And yes, and I agree, in these games we do need a strong ball-winning type, like that we don't really have. We've got 5 or 6 central midfield players, and we don't really have anybody that can do that. Nygren and Engels are tall. They look like big athletic specimens, but they're not those types of players. They just don't have that instinct in them. But I think more than that, even just the energy and the creativity for midfield is just non-existent.
And the thing is, when you look at the players that we do have, right, and some of them are good players, right? Maybe not in a good space, not in good form, that kind of thing. I actually think, pound for pound, we have, for where we're at as a club right now, a very decent midfield. But John Watt's comment is spot on. It's always looking for the safe pass. And the one player that does look to maybe instigate a wee bit is Rio Hatate. He's not in good form. And even when he is, people got on his back about passes that kind of go astray and stuff. When he's playing well, I defend him. but you can't carry him in this midfield. But we've got too many midfielders. There seems to be two archetypes. You mentioned the kind of Engels archetype, and then you've got the other one, which is the kind of more forward-thinking players that are a bit more technical, but will not really have the same amount of dig. And we just, as a midfield, it's like we've got loads of good players, but they're all too similar. They don't complement each other. There doesn't seem to be any kind of pivot dynamic there that is working. And I don't think that with the players that we've got right now, and definitely not with Brendan Rodgers as head coach, this isn't me calling for him to go, right? But I don't think he's got what it takes to make the current group of players work, or at least he's not shown that so far. And I think that is one of the problem areas for Celtic. One of.
Aye, there's loads of talk in the comments, Stuart, about the manager. Some people will tell you it's all on him. It's his tactics. He's clearly not getting a tune out of the team. I just want to bring up this comment saying you could put Klopp in charge of them. It wouldn't make any real difference. Bang average group that badly needs new blood. And it's hard to disagree with that. I think where I do accept that Brendan Rodgers has got some responsibility to take here. And I think that the problems do arise more often than not in Brendan Rodgers' career at this stage in all of his tenures in the third season.
Yep.
But we have seen Brendan Rodgers teams in the past who are good and can play good football. And it's not even that long ago that we've seen it. Yes, I know that since Munich we've barely kicked a ball and we've not won a big game in a long time, and that is squarely at his door. But when you look at that collection of players, you look at the lineup that finished the game tonight, again, we need to turn to James Forrest off the bench on the right-hand side.
My
goodness. We literally have just about nothing else. Dane Murray comes on to play on the right-hand side because Tierney needs to come off, and I think the situation around Tierney is another one that's really, really not ideal for us. It's a constant struggle that we need to think about when Kieran needs to come off the pitch, and then he's changed formation tonight and he has to bring Tierney off, and then Dane Murray goes to the right-hand side of a three. And you look at the lineup that finished the game. You can look at the one that started the game as well in numerous positions, but the one that finished the game, it's just not got it. There's nothing about that looks like a promising Celtic team, is there?
No. I think we know that the trouble stems from recruitment, but I do understand the questions about the manager. Now, see that what he did towards the end of that game, it kind of smacked off you're desperate for a winning football manager and you're about to do the save it and turn it off kind of carry on, because I get the impression that he was just trying to sort of throw mud and kind of make it stick. Now, Brendan Rodgers, I think, is a really shrewd tactician, but you've also got to consider his position. Now, my reading of that is pretty simple. I think him and the board look to be at loggerheads right now, and essentially, I think he's drip-feeding comments in the media just every so often to continually make the board look worse. Some folk will think that's bad. I think it's absolutely right that he does that. And I think it's clear that he's going to go at the end of this season. The only question is he going to go with another title? And if he does, by the way, he goes down as one of the best Celtic managers of all time. You can't argue that, given what he's achieved. But I also do think that I would not be sad to see him go at this point, because it looks tired, it looks tepid, and I immediately, as soon as Ange Postecoglou's football stopped, and we can all talk about how sustainable that is over a long period, look what happened at Spurs, but Ange Postecoglou's football lifted you at your seat. Brendan Rodgers' football Disney, right? Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel that I'm happy for us to go in another direction, but it's a risk as well, because Rodgers is a proven winner, and we don't really have a great team at the moment, although you could argue that a new manager would come in, give it a bounce, galvanise it, but it's definitely, at the end of the season, hopefully he goes with a title. But at the moment, the most important stuff happening at Celtic is not happening on the pitch, and that's sad.
Aye, absolutely. I just want to shout out Craig for the super chat. Thanks a lot. Never easy to come on live after a defeat. Aye, it's not.
I'm fighting a storm as well, mate. Like, my satellite went out for about 20 minutes of that game, so any kind of poor analysis... well, that's it. It was a blessing, probably, wasn't
it? Not many managers tie for more than 2 years at Celtic, that you could also pick holes in that in terms of the recruitment operation and what goes on behind the scenes. Sure, I think everything we've talked about, how subdued the whole club is, atmosphere around the place, what the team are producing, the situation with the manager and his contract coming to an end. I said this to Kenny at the weekend after the Hibs game, and there was again a predominant train of thought after the Hibs game that, listen, on another day you put your chances away and that's a comfortable win. It was a 4th 0-0 that we've watched in 11 competitive games so far this season. We didn't score again tonight. I saw a stat just before we came on here that we've had no goals in the first half in 9 out of our 12 competitive matches so far.
Wow.
And we've scored 0 goals in 5 of our last 9 games. It's very, very difficult, and I said this to Kenny in the pub on Saturday, very, very difficult to have any sense of excitement about the season ahead. We've only just turned into October the other day there. It's stark, and it's very difficult to, you've said that we need a galvanising force. It's very difficult to see where that comes from with everything going on off the pitch, the problems in the boardroom, the changes that have to be made there, the changes that need to be made to the recruitment structure, the situation with the manager, and the lack of quality and depth that we have on the pitch. We don't have the ingredients for a good season, and that's not to say that we can't cobble one together and sort of stumble over the line domestically, but it's very difficult right now to see where a great Celtic season could come from.
I mean, it all comes down to winning the title at the end of the day. It's as simple as that. If we go over the line, I wouldn't call it a great Celtic. But I suppose you could argue that we've become accustomed to success in terms of managing to get the domestic title. But I think context is needed. Rangers are an abject mess as a football club, right? Hearts are just going to do the basics, mate. The basics of modern football. We've got a recruitment operation that's, who was Peter Lawwell's latest missed call, and Kelechi Iheanacho's number was saved by Brendan Rodgers, thankfully. What on earth is that for a club that's trying to compete at a global level, man? It's just no good enough. And the thing is, look at yourself tonight. You've not been at the game, right? That's a choice, and that is a choice that I wholly endorse, because you think this isn't good enough. We deserve better. And so many Celtic fans think that. And there was folk there tonight chanting sack the board and all that kind of thing. For me, and this might be a controversial standpoint, and I know loads of people don't agree with it, but I think you vote with your feet, right? You vote with your feet and you say, look, this isn't good enough. In any other walk of life, if a product, right, which is what they see it as, right? If a product is that defective, do you know what you do? You go for the rival product. See, in football, you can't do that. Right? You don't have that choice. It's a vested vitriolic thing. So if that's something that they are going to take advantage of, and they have absolutely taken advantage of the loyalty and the faith of the Celtic fans over the years, this is the time for change. And do you know what? You only get that by forcing and effecting that change. And regarding the situation of the kind of fans clubs engaging with the board, this to me seems a stalling tactic. It seems a stalling tactic, and the silence and all the other things that are going on, I get why it's happening, and I endorse it happening. I'm interested in your thoughts just on that whole side of it as well, mate, because I know, obviously, it's dear to all our hearts, you know?
Oh, the meeting on Monday?
No, just in general, like the situation of voting with your feet and that kind of side of it, and the meeting as well.
Look, I understand that most people want to back the team, sack the board. That's that's a predominant slogan that gets used at times like this when people are demanding answers about the way the club is run. I just find it very, very difficult. I want to go and support the team as well. There's nothing more that I want to do, but I suppose my red line has been crossed by the board, and I think it's very difficult to square back the team and constantly collectively give the club millions and millions of pounds and European tickets to back the team. That is also backing the board. That's also funding. That's supporting the way the club is being run. That's supporting the way that things are being done. And I know that it's difficult on the players. It's hard on the players. We want to be there supporting them. And like you said, 2/3 of the crowd were there tonight. That will be another £2 million or whatever in the coffers for the board to count at the end of the next financial year. And it's like we went over at the time during the summer. It's not about them throwing about fortunes. It's just about them putting a proper, respectable, modern recruitment structure in place that can function and can't have us making these same mistakes like Groundhog Day every single season. And I just find it difficult to constantly put my hand in my pocket and support that. I know that, listen, people want to go and support the team, so do I, but I think it is a vote for every 40 quid you want to go and spend on another ticket is a vote for how the club's being run and how things have been done. And it's a difficult decision. I don't want to be sitting here, but I just can't make peace with any other decision in my mind at the minute.
I think that's justified. I think the other aspect of it for me is, right, Celtic's most marketable entity, as what Jockstein said, football without fans is nothing, right? And Celtic used to print that in the back of season tickets when we had our season cards when we had them. And I think that what Celtic need to, at board level, to think about now is, right, you're basically at the stage now where the people who are the most important part of the whole thing, you're pissing them off to the point that they are now maybe not going to be quite the entity that they were, right? You're not going to have quite that same support going away from home, because you're talking about money for home tickets that the board gets, right? There's also the way that Celtic fans behave themselves and travel and back and sing and all of that stuff, right? And I can remember, like, I was on the video when we were outside Atletico Madrid after getting a tonking. How many fans have been and seen us get humbled time and time and time again? You've got your own away curse that you're trying to fight in terms of getting a result. And I look at the whole thing and I just go, right, this is the stage where it could all implode a bit, right? Because we've got something special and something unique. Let's preserve that.
Aye, absolutely. I know exactly. I know exactly what you mean. Sorry, I'm just distracted with Stevie's comment there. A record signing as the tax bill. Aye, that about sums it up.
At least we pay them, by the way.
That sums it up. Aye, look, it's another difficult night. It's really hard to see, as I say, going forward. We play Motherwell on Sunday, and like I said, domestically, we may well be able to cobble a season together, but it's just so difficult right now to see where the shoots of growth are coming from. I think, like we've went over tonight, all over the pitch, even the goalkeeper now. There's question marks with likes of Carter Vickers. I think some of his performances this season. We've talked about midfield. The front line's a mess. The depth just isn't there off the bench. The manager's situation and where his head is at with his contract running down. Key players that we've relied on coming to the end of their cycle. It's a tough watch just now, and I can't see in the short term really how that changes. There is the news of this meeting on Monday. What we've got to remember is it did lead to the silent protest being postponed tonight. What we've got to remember is this is the Celtic board. We'll see what comes out of it, and we'll see if all the questions are answered, and we'll see if it's not just lip service and business as usual like it always has been with the way that Celtic is run. So I'm not going to get carried away and think that any change is going to come off the back of that meeting next Monday.
By the way, just a quick one. I was just going to say, I'm not sure if it's the Brian Wilson influence, right? But it kind of feels that they act like a political party, and it's almost like appeasement and spin and those kind of tactics. I don't really see anything meaningful. Sorry, I just thought that was a kind of point to fling in there.
Aye, who knows, mate? Who knows? I think the culture at the club, the culture on the board is not a good one. I think there's far too many people that have been there far too long, and there's no real willingness, it appears, to change that. It looks like the supporters collectively are having to force it. That's why this meeting's been brought about. But we'll wait with bated breath on whatever the outcome is. next Monday, or as a load of people have commented in the last 2 minutes. We'll wait and see if it even goes ahead. Right, Motherwell at home on Sunday. I'll be back with you with the starting 11 at the weekend. Thank you for joining us on this stream. I know that it was difficult if you were watching it and not just listening to it, because Stuart's picture wasn't great at times. Really appreciate the support. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you at the weekend for the build up to Motherwell. Cheers.